So I put out a video
Hmm.
just this past week about a little old brand called Balenciaga. I reviewed their most recent collection, and there was a lot uh, of happenings leading up to this most recent collection. I don't know how deep we should go here, Christian. Where do you want to start here? What do you think?
Well, I'll start with this. Balenciaga was started by Cristobal Balenciaga in the early 20th
Crystal
century.
ball
He
Balenciaga. Yep.
he was a Spanish designer who moved to Paris, France, and began designing dresses. His contemporary Christian Dior called him the master of all of us because he was acclaimed for his skills as an atelier. Kilian, that was a bit. We shouldn't
I was
start
letting you
that
go.
early. We
No,
shouldn't start
no.
that. Okay, let me do this. So, Balenciaga's creative director Demna, the artist formerly known as Demna Galasaviya, um,
Mhm.
is a dude who is a iconic designer, iconoclast even.
Yep.
The man child or brainchild behind Vetements, and he brought that craziness over to Balenciaga. And
Mhm.
one thing that Mischief and Demna have in common is
Ooh, here
they
you go.
love to make whacked designs just to go viral. I mean, I think Demna is like, okay, we create X amount of pieces and then we make one piece for Fox News to talk about
Yep.
because they, talk daytime like news loves
Mhm.
going like, this designer pant
Mhm.
has no leg holes. It costs $10,000.
Yep.
And it's like most of it, there is typically a level of like designing and like kind of putting the whole design into question that goes into it. But
Mhm.
there's also a lot of this is a meme.
Mhm.
Uh, so that's kind of Demna's MO. In the last, what was it, last year, a couple of months ago, in
Yeah.
very recent memory, Balenciaga kind of took a big L's, and the
Yes,
L's
sir.
revolved around a controversial ad campaign they ran that had children holding teddy bears that had like bondage stuff on it, and
Mhm.
there were also shots of a table with documents on it, and the documents were referencing American Supreme Court, America law,
Yep.
referring to child abuse.
Yep.
So the takeaway could well be that either Balenciaga is trying to sexualize children, that they support this kind
Mhm.
of sexualization, or if not, that they think that it's edgy or avant-garde to imply such a thing.
And I want to
So,
stop you there because I'm going to put you on the spot here. Okay.
okie dokie.
And I want to know, and this is not binary, this is a spectrum. Okay. And you can land anywhere along it. With Balenciaga, with that ad campaign or the ad campaigns collectively, um, where do you think that lies? Where there's 10 means that they are secret Jeffrey Epstein cabalists who are
Yes,
trying to spread the message
that's a
of
good
base
word.
child abuse to the world.
Hmm.
And on the other end, it is they had absolutely no idea what they were doing. They're innocent little babies who are just creating beautiful works and would never dream of doing anything bad or even
Uh-huh.
edgy ever.
I'll tell you. I'll tell you
Mhm,
straight up.
mhm.
I think it's like probably a 4 or 5.
Totally.
I
Straight up.
I straight up, I do at 10 being they did it on purpose, 1 being
Mhm,
they're saints, and
mhm.
actually Demna has been sneaking out and volunteering at a
Yeah,
children's shelter.
yeah.
No, I think it was a 4 or 5.
Mhm.
And I'll give you a couple of reasons why. For
Please.
one, in the Vogue article that came out before this collection that maybe we'll get to, or maybe we just rant and never talk about it.
Maybe.
In the Vogue article, Vogue interviewed Demna because they're like, Demna, there's a lot of fire on your ass right now. What are you
Mhm.
going to do?
Yep.
And one of the things he said explicitly in the interview was that that whole ad campaign, like he
Yeah.
takes responsibility, he apologizes, he knows it was a mistake, but it was absolutely, he said, not a deliberate attempt to commoditize or like to make art from child abuse. That
And
was
here,
a mistake, I guess.
I wanna stop you again right here because I got the impression generally by that. I get that it's a person's words. You kind of have to take them at their word. You can't read their mind, but you generally kind of on board with that.
Do I buy it? Do I believe
Yeah,
it?
do you believe that he didn't really mean to do anything? It was just an oversight. He thought it would be a cool image, and that was kind of that.
It goes two ways. Here's the thing.
Yeah.
And I've said 5, which is average, honestly.
Yep.
But on one end of the spectrum, the other thing that Demna kind of is under attack for, he's not really, but it's like he was closely associated with Ye and his artistic endeavors.
Sure.
Like Demna was the creative director of the like Donda release and shows.
One of the 4 of them, right?
Yeah. And Demna was also involved in the Yeezy Gap pieces. It was engineered by Balenciaga. Needless to say, his association with Kanye as of recently doesn't look good.
No.
And if you are kind of, I don't know, like I'm thinking like if I was working with Kanye, it would be hard to say like, well, I respect this artist so much. And I'm imagining I'm Demna, but at the same time, maybe you're hanging out with Kanye and he's like, hey, is that guy a Jew? I hate Jews. And it's like, well, I can't ever talk to you again. You have to be excommunicated from my life for saying such a thing. So there's that kind of toss up.
My cat just like fell off an entire thing like onto my table.
Oh my god.
She just loves Kanye, dude. She loves Kanye. She got worked up about this whole thing.
She's like, Kanye didn't do anything wrong. Which I'm adamant. You know what? I'll be serious on the podcast for a second. I disavow any child abuse. I disavow any sex with children.
Brave.
I disavow any anti-Semitism.
You're so brave, dude.
And I have no time for it.
Oh my god.
Here's the other thing. Here's the other thing about the ad campaign, because I know we have to say something.
Okay.
I know, at least from my experience working on big brands, especially working on like big marketing campaigns, even the creative director or like the talent, even they are inundated with information and stuff and decisions and choices. And sometimes said creative directors can make outrageous choices that throw people's work into the garbage after months. True. Just because they didn't like how a picture looked. And sometimes they basically are signing off on things that it's still their responsibility, but they have so much going on. It's like, how can we honestly expect that Demna is looking at every minutia, is prepared for any kind of like,
no,
I don't know, thing.
Especially when this was like an ad campaign for their like objects collection for their website. Like, if in the grand scheme of things, it was quite a low level campaign for the record. For my part, to leave it on this part, I will say I think there was some intentional edge involved in it.
Yeah.
But there's no way they can admit that, because admitting that they were intending to be edgy just feeds the flames and gives the cultural warriors that are trying to light the fire under this thing the ammo to point and say, see, look, they knew what they were doing and they admitted it. They meant it all along. And so I think that's why I'm with you. It's like a 5.
You know what? I think that is 100% in the realm of probability. And keeping in mind, Demna is the kind of edgelord who might potentially do something like that, like where he would push a cultural norm. But now like our world is full of snowflakes. That's right, conservative snowflakes who get worked up whenever anything is talking about having sex with kids.
And dude, people are out of touch. Okay, like people forget in this day and age where we got TikTok and Twitter and we're all up on everything. People get so out of touch. Like Dolce and Gabbana are out there doing wild boy stuff, and they'll be like, "What? Blackface is bad?
What?
We didn't know what we thought. It just looked cool. You know what I
Homophobia
mean?
is bad? We thought that was
Yeah.
cool.
It's
Yeah,
crazy the blind spots that some people have, especially the older you get, generation by generation. You know what I mean?
the old heads, yeah. So needless to say, all of that ramble was to set up
Mm-hmm.
Demna basically had a gun to his head, and they said, if this next Balenciaga
Oh
collection
yeah.
doesn't do well, I don't know. I don't know, is what they basically said.
Let's
And
bring it
so
up. Let's bring this collection up here.
he came out swinging. Kilian, you
That's what
should
we got to discuss.
you should open with your feelings on it.
Okay. So this is super interesting. There's some stuff that I felt right from the get-go, and there's other things that people have since commented on the video that I made about it that do ring true to me. I found this collection to run through a bunch of Demna staples like the tailoring, the boxiness, the shoulders, the fits, and
Mm-hmm.
various things. He's doing lots and lots of things that he's always done. The hybridization of these like double pants here.
Yeah.
All of this is stuff that he's been mining for 5+ years now at Balenciaga. And to me, all of it just lacked the energy and emotion that I have felt from these ideas and silhouettes from him in the past. That was where I essentially left it. Other people have actually felt like it's a swan song, like he knows he's on his way out, so he's doing a kind of greatest hits. I don't know, but my overall review was that, hey, he's still doing Demna stuff. He's still a great designer, and he's one of my favorites within fashion. But for me, it was lacking some sort of soul that's a bit intangible. How about you?
I think you actually said this in another episode, but you said something when Demna first started at Balenciaga. His first show was like the first season of Seinfeld. It wasn't
Mm-hmm.
there yet.
Yeah. Yep.
I
True.
disagree. That's my take.
Hey,
So
okay, hit me.
when Vetements first hit the scene,
Mhm.
it to me was kind of a lot like looking at those Astro Boy boots, where I would see the
Okay.
pieces, everybody in fashion was talking about it,
Mhm.
and I was like, okay, this is super weird,
Yeah.
and like it's cool, but I wasn't ready to wear any of it. It was just something that it was interesting to look at. His earliest Vetements stuff.
Yep.
But I remember thinking his first show at Balenciaga kind of felt like what John Donne said about the sonnet, that you need a restriction to
I see.
in
By the way,
order
I've pulled
to
it up right here. This is the fall 2016 Balenciaga collection.
and I don't know if John Donne actually said that, but he did write sonnets. So what it felt like to me, this first collection felt
Mhm.
like we were seeing Demna's ideas about like silhouettes and clothing and shapes, but it
Mhm.
was being channeled through structure, the strictness, and the necessity of a massive house. And
Yeah.
my initial feeling was, okay, dude, now you're hitting. Now this is hitting because it's not just like a diaper that's a $1 billion leather bag or something.
I see what
Or
you're
like,
saying. It's no longer like fashion bad boys turning up their nose at the system. It's like, okay, you've got the keys, now go off.
yeah, exactly. Because that's what Vetements was. It was like,
Mhm.
it was like Parsons Kids, basically energy.
Right.
But the first collection, I felt like he was applying these shapes and ideas and the
Mhm.
same kind of subversiveness in a way that felt very on point.
I'll
So
say I think it's look 19. This like brown shearling aviator jacket has always been a grail of mine.
for sure, I've seen people in that all the time. Come to New York
Ooh.
City, you'll see them everywhere in
Ooh.
those Balenciaga shearlings. Um, So so like looking at this, I mean,
Mhm.
that was kind of also my thinking, and you already
Mm.
kind of phrased it, was this collection feels a lot like a swan song.
Yeah.
Demna he worked at Margiela at some point
Mhm.
before all of this, and to an extent, the runway itself seems to be kind of like an homage to that. It seems like for a designer who has spent a lot of time, and they both went to Antwerp's school for
True, yeah.
twerps.
Right.
This felt like a moment where he's like coming back and he's saying, listen, remember when I first got here, I was the brat who had weird ideas about clothing, but then I showed you all that my weird ideas translate into interesting, bizarre, and transcendentalism, transitional, new shapes and like designs.
Yeah.
That is what I was like. I didn't. I mean, I don't know if this is close reading. Maybe you're doing a better close reading than I am because
So I think this is actually really interesting because I think you are the optimist and I'm maybe the pessimist because I'm reading this as, oh, either
boring and
he's
safe.
playing it safe because he's so scared of losing his job that he's gone too far into and too uptight, or he knows he's getting fired and he's kind of waving us goodbye. Whereas you're kind of looking at it as like, hey, let me just get back to basics and prove why I deserve to be here in the first place.
I mean, I wouldn't. Listen, we're it's a story. We don't know what he wants to do. Oh,
No,
you know what?
yeah.
I didn't put this light on. Do you guys want to see this light?
Oh, they wanted to see that light.
Yeah.
So this is a mainstay of the podcast for our listeners. I don't know how we went this far without people begging and clamoring for the yellow orb, but Christian's brought it back.
The room nipple.
Yep.
Back to Demna. Okay, what was I saying?
Optimism, pessimism. We don't really know what's going to happen. Yeah.
Oh, I was saying this. We're kind of predicting about what he thinks. If I was in Demna's shoes, and I'm not, because they would be big clown shoes or something crazy.
Right.
I would say I would try to move all of my family out of Georgia because who knows what's going to happen there. And I would be thinking to myself, I kicked ass at Balenciaga. Even if people think I'm a pedophile now, there are multiple shows that are like, this is top tier. This is really interesting stuff.
Yeah.
Like even like a recent one where he was doing the global warming show where like the entire runway was water and there was like the apocalypse lighting. Like I think that was sick. If I was Demna, I would be like, ta-da, this is my show. I'm actually going to leave. I think he should leave at this point.
I think that would make sense to me. And I think we'll just kind of have to wait and see because that's where it is that it was kind of a weird collection for better or worse. I think your interpretation of it and enjoyment of it is perfectly valid, but I think one of us will be proven right more so than the other at least, and we'll just have to see which it is.
Put Christopher's comment on the
I would love to read it for us. What do you got?
Hey, Christopher, one of our faithful viewers says, Demna would be a good director for Margiela since they don't mind designers with past controversies.
Ooh, some Galliano.
Yeah, speaking of anti-Semitism.
Right here.
Galliano is the creative director of Margiela. He was once the darling creative director of Dior, but like Ye, I think he said, and I quote, "I love Hitler." I think he might have actually said that. I know he said something else about gas chambers, but Galliano kind of went off on an anti-Semitic rant, and Dior was
very Mel Gibson.
Yeah, they were like, "Oh, you need to go." And a few years later, Margiela is like, "Listen, buddy, we love what you did. We love your work."
Yeah.
And
they're purists. They're all about the clothes, my man.
Yeah. I fear that, we think that Margiela is anonymous because he's an artist. But the truth is, if we knew what he was like, if we knew what he really looked like, it would be like every picture of Jeffrey Epstein, Margiela is there.
Exactly.
Every picture of like a serial killer, there's Margiela.
And if you subscribe to our Patreon, you will get our investigative reporting on that. We've got sources. We have interviews.
It's like
actually, we don't have a Patreon and we're not investigative reporters, but that would be wild.
Yeah, we don't have a Patreon because actually New York Times, or I think it's NPR, whoever
Mhm.
owns Serial right now, bum bum, Serial intro goes, that's the next season. It's us. It's the next season of
Yes.
Serial. And this mystery is about where is Margella and where are the bodies?
Exposed.